Yeah, the short-term course on exploring pointers in C from 16th to 20th July 2020. Our team, headed by Dr. S.S. Navalgund sir, Professor Kotresh Murali, and me, we work in Department of ENC, SDMCT. So in today's session, we treat it as day one, session one, basics and review of C programming. The intention of taking this session is in order to brush up all the things that we have already learned. And you can contact me anytime with this mail ID, shrikantks09@gmail.com, shrikantks at sdmct.ac.in. You can post your queries after this session or after this program also. I'll be happy to help you. And also you can find my YouTube lecture series at tinyurl.com, Shrikant YouTube. These lectures will be recorded and it will be uploaded for your later, you can view the videos late also for later response. So before I start, I would like to tell you what all things I referred in order to prepare the slides and in order to study for myself. Some of the references goes like this. Let Us See by Yashwant Kanetkar, Programming with C by Brian Kernighan and Dennis Ritchie, See the Complete Reference by Herbert Schild, and I have referred a lot of websites, so you can also do the same thing. And I've learned lot many things by practicing, and this is an important thing. So this C program comes with a practice. The more you practice, the more you will be having a hold on it. Here are the contents I'll be focusing on: history of C, features of C, basic structure, operators, data types and typecasting, memory, loop statements, switch case statement, direct continue statement, arrays and strings, structures, unions and enumerations. Of course, I have left certain things. Those are conditional statements, functions and pointers. These will be taken when is the requirement, because in the sessions to come we'll be focusing on or we'll be throwing more light on functions and pointers. So there we'll be giving some basics and then we'll be focusing on pointers and functions and so on. Here goes the history of C. I'll be a bit fast in covering up the history and features and all because most of you have learned it, and let us spend more time on the learning of concepts and learning how to program. Okay. So in 1960, the ALGOL, which is considered to be a first computer language to use as a block structure. ALGOL has been extracted by the name called algorithm. In 1967, Martin Richards developed a language called BCPL. The abbreviation is Basic Combined Programming Language. In 1970, Ken Thompson created a language called as B, which is used to create earlier versions of Unix. And then comes famously known as father of C program, Dennis Ritchie. In 1972, he introduced a new language called C. In 1978, K&R-C was launched by Kernighan and Ritchie. This is one of the famous books that is available, which even I have referred. In 1989, ANSI C standardization process has been made by American National Standard Institute Committee. In 1990, International Standard Organization Committee standardized it and they named it as ANSI ISO C. In 1999, the standardization C99 came up, which we normally everywhere is more prevalent. And thereafter, in recent times, C11 and then C18 standardization have just introduced certain features on C99. This is about the history of C. Now comes the features of C. You can see that the C has many features like simple, portable, structured, middle level. I call it as middle level because looking at the current programming languages, C is thought to be an efficient one. So that's why rather than calling it as high level, I call it as middle level, but mainly it is called as high level language. It is a robust language. Programs written in C are efficient and fast. That's why I wanted to just now tell you, because of wide variety of data types and powerful operators. It's highly portable related to OS. You can work it on Windows, you can work on Symbian OS, Android, and you find Linux. You find C compilers almost in all the OS. It's highly portable. Well suited for structured programming, and it has ability to extend itself. You just imagine In 1972, Dennis Ritchie introduced C. And it's been more than 50 years. It's been near to 50 years. Still we are treating C language as one of the very important language and which is considered to be very important for placements. The reason for it, the one of the main reason for it is it has an ability to extend itself. You can add the feature to the C by writing the code in C itself. So that's the ability C has. And lot of the programming tools that are available in current generation, new programming tools are again are written. The background scripting language is C itself. And you might wonder that C language comes up with only 32 keywords. Keywords are nothing but predefined words. For example, int is a keyword. Float is one more keyword. Double is a keyword. Long is a keyword. Main is a keyword. So these keywords are only 32 in C language. And if you know how to place and where to place all these keywords, you'll be a very good programmer. But you know, you have lot of variations and learning in this. Let us look into it somewhat. A very normal doubt anybody can have is, what's the difference between coding and programming? We normally use these two things interchangeably. Let us now understand the difference before I go with the program. So coding is normally considered as a subset of programming, wherein coding is normally comes up with the following features: machine readable inputs, writing lines of the codes, language and syntax. I call coding to be more nearer to the hardware. Whereas programming is a whole set, I can say, creating and developing an executable machine program, debugging and testing, translating requirements, and documentation. So this comprises a program. Now let us have a look on defining what is program. A program is a set of instructions which, when carried out by a processor for some specific input, generates a specific output. The meaning is, a program is like you're instructing a computer to what should be done. You are informing the computer through some set of instructions, so what kind of the output you want. That's all is a program. And what's a programming language? Language is a programming language and the language we speak. There is very small difference there. The language that we speak, let it be English or Kannada or Hindi or Marathi, it's just a medium for interacting between a human and a human, a person to person. Whereas programming language is a medium of communication, or it's an interactive tool to communicate between a person and a machine. We want to talk to a machine, and what's the medium, what's the tool we use is a programming language. And a specific manner of writing a program is called as a programming language. We have some set of rules, like how we have a grammar in English, grammar in Kannada, as well as grammar in Hindi. We have some set of rules, we need to follow it while writing a programming language. So that defines a programming language. Some examples are Pascal, C, C++, Java, and etc. The basic structure of C goes like this. You all might be knowing it. The C program will be comprising of these many sections. What's the first section? It's a documentation section. Link section, then comes link section, definition section, global declaration, main function, and subprograms or subroutines you have if you have something. So let us just look into it in a quick phase. Documentation section, I can tell you with very simple words, it's a comment lines. Comment lines are very important. You just think, in an industry, 90% of the employees or corporate people will not write a code by themselves. What they do is they'll be asked to modify the already written code by somebody else. And it's very hard to decode and understand already written code by somebody else. And let me tell you one of the funny things. If you write a program now, some complicated program for your project, and after 2 years, if you have a look into it, and I doubt whether you will easily understand it, because it needs a lot of efforts even to understand the program written by ourselves. In that case, you just have a thing. Imagine what if the program is written by somebody else. That's why it is always recommended to use comment lines efficiently in order to tell for what things this data type is declared, for what things this variable is declared, what is the program is for, all these things. And there is one small things I want to add. It cannot be nested, means comments inside the comments does not mean anything, and it will throw you an error by the compiler. Link section is the very next one, which normally we consider to be the first line. so barring the comments line, right? So hash include directive is a link section. Why it is called as a link section? Because this hash include adds the library file, which we call it as header files, into your program. So normally we add stdio.h header file into your while writing the program. That is standard IO input and output library, which has many functions which we very most commonly use, like printf, scanf. All these functions come up with this header file. So those functions will be linked to your program when you include this directive. And the syntax goes like this. Then comes the definition section. These definition section is hash define. Normally, generally, we write it in uppercase. For example, if we define something like true with logic 1. So wherever I use true, also there it will be replaced with 1. So for defining some constant, we'll be using definition section. Then comes the global declaration section. So you might be knowing the meaning of global variables. Global variables are used in more than one functions, and such variables are declared in global declaration section. Then comes the heart of the program, that is main function. So in the main function, we have declaration part and executable part. Declaration part is all about declaring and defining the variables, that is int so and so, float so and so, char, whatever data types and whatever variable you declare, that will be treated as first part of the main function. This one. Then comes the executable part. Executable part is the algorithmic part, or else I can say it's a logic building part. So it has at least one statement. I just want you to concentrate more over here, because these are some of the very minor things which we ignore, and these plays very important role in understanding the program. Main function, how this main function is written. One of the way is writing is main with parenthesis, open parenthesis and close parenthesis, which is considered as no arguments. If nothing is written inside a parenthesis, then we call it as no arguments. Argument means inputs, the passing of the inputs to the function. For example, if you are passing some inputs to the function, those will be treated as arguments. If nothing is written in this parenthesis, then we call it as no arguments, which is equivalently written as main in the parenthesis void. So void normally explicitly indicates no arguments. Then comes the other ways of usage. Main can be also written as int main. What's the meaning of it? If something is written in front of the main, then it tells about the return type. What kind of the return value it is giving. So int type is a return type of the main. So that's one of the important things you should remember. If at all you use int main, it has to return some of the integer, or else at least you should end with a command called return 0. So that's how you need to end the int main function. Void main, it does not return anything. Whenever void is written, it means explicitly it indicates no, it is not returning anything. And here no arguments. Main void is already discussed. Then comes void main void. It is as good as writing the very first one that I have shown here. It is same as that. Int void main, no arguments, but it is returning an integer. So this is a basic structure of your C program. Now comes very important part of the C program, that is compiler. What does compiler do? Compiler checks for syntax errors, if any. That's a very simple understanding that we all have. On success, it converts C code into object file. This is a normal knowledge almost every one of us we have. Now comes interpreter. Of course, we don't have interpreter in C compiler. We call it a C compiler. We never call it a C interpreter. But just to differentiate, let me tell you, we have interpreter in MATLAB. Let us understand what's the difference between compiler and interpreter. So interpreter analyzes and executes each line. Please focus here. Analyzes and executes each line of the source code without looking at the entire program. So compiler interpreter is, so this, look at this diagram. Interpreter analogy is given here. This person is giving the feedback to the speaker every minute. every often that something is going wrong, something is right, go ahead, all this thing indication he's giving. That is how interpreter works. Each line, after execution of each line, it will throw you the update or output, whatever you have. Whereas compiler will just present something in the prints something in the output screen only after whole of the program executes properly. So that's the difference between interpreter and compiler. Now comes the linker. Again, an important process here. The linker is a program that combines object module to form an object executable program. Just have a look here. Source file is nothing but C program. So what's the meaning of source file? It's a C program because we are into the C programming training. So this source file means C program. So once C program is converted to the object file, who does this conversion to the object file? It's the compiler. It's the compiler. Once the object file is generated, then this linker links the runtime library and the header files. Runtime library has nothing but header files. For example, if you have used printf, so printf, scanf, all these are fetched from stdioh library. So there, that program will be linked to the program that you have written. Joining process will happen here, and this will create the executable program which is ready for execution onto your hardware. So this is how the process of C programming execution happens. Now I just throw some light on high level language, assembly level language, and machine level language. C is normally considered as high level language. There is nothing like middle level language, so that's why I just quoted it in the earlier slides. So high level language is the one which is dearer to you, dearer to human, the one which is like English-like statements. For example, in C language, I can use English-like statement, which is very dearer to me. I can easily write a program. But for machine, it is a difficult one to decode. That's why it is called as high-level language. Whereas assembly level language, for example, 8051 microcontroller, 8085 microprocessor coding, you have used assembly level language. That comes intermediate to machine level language and high level language, where we'll be using opcodes and mnemonics. So here in machine level language, it is a bit level language wherein it will comprises of zeros and ones. So what's the difference then? You just have a look here. I have given an analogy. You think that he's a programmer and this person is using a low level language. He might take 1 year to code the same thing, same application, but which his code takes just 1 second to execute in a computer on a hardware. Whereas high level language, this person seems to be very happy because in just 1 month he can write the code because it's a high level language dearer to him. 1 month his work is done. But for hardware to execute this program written, it takes more time compared to the low level programming. So machine language is more efficient in terms of hardware utilization, whereas vice versa with the high level languages. Some of the operators in C language are arithmetic operators, logical operators, bitwise operators, relational operators, and assignment operators, and some of the miscellaneous operators. So here I have listed few of them. This list focuses on relational operator and logical operator. Double equal to means equal to operator, less than or equal to, you can read this. And these are logical operator with double ampersand, double vertical bar, and exclamatory mark, logical not. There is a small difference between logical operators and bitwise operators. Logical operators will just give you the output whether it is true or false, whereas bitwise operators, it will analyze the inputs at every bit. For example, if you have 4 bits A and 4 bits B, if you are performing AND operation, each bit it will compute the ANDed operation, whereas for logical it is not so. So here this is a bitwise operator, ampersand, vertical bar, and so on. Then comes the arithmetic operator. We have plus, minus, multiplication, division, and modulo operator. So as it is a review session, I'm going a bit fast. If at all you have certain queries, please post it, or please put it in the comment section. I'll just go through it after every 15 or 20 minutes. Assignment operators are the one wherein you have left hand side and right hand side operations. Right hand side will be updating its value onto the left hand side. This is called assignment operator. You have some special kind assignment operator like post increment and pre increment operators. Also post decrement and pre decrement operators. And also you can use this as x plus equal to y. This means assign assign x with x plus y. It's as good as writing x equal to x plus y, x equal to x minus y, x equal to x into y, thereon. This is one of the way you can write to reduce the written scripts. Note the difference between post increment and pre increment. This is one of the most important concept which the company people use in order to twist the questions. I being the one of the placement coordinator of my department, so I'll be invigilating while the students take up their placements, aptitude test as well as programming test. So I'll be going through all those things, and I have seen a lot of such questions. You just have a look. Int x is equal to y means x is been initialized with a value of y, phi, which is of integer type. Y is a integer variable. Y is been assigned with plus plus x. What's the meaning of it? What's the meaning of plus plus x? So plus plus x meaning is pre-increment of x. It's a pre-increment of x. So if I execute this code onto the compiler, so what will be my value? See here, just have a check. I'll explain the output and then explain you how it works. X is equal to 6. I should have, put a single equal to, let it be. You just think it as x equal to 6, x value is 6, y is value is 6. Just have a look now. Post increment means, pre-increment means, before the assignment happens, it will increment first. X value is 5, 5 will be incremented first. So 5 becomes 6. So x value is 6, and this 6 value 6 will be updated to the y. So hence x and y carries the value 6. Now similarly we will observe the working of this program where I have just replaced this pre-increment with post increment. So what happens here? In post increment, the meaning of post means post the assignment operator. First assignment happens, that is x value is 5, 5 will be assigned to y, and then x is incremented. So that's why y value is 5 and x value is 6. So this is the difference between pre-increment and post-increment. Please remember this. And also I would suggest you not to confuse between equal to and double equal to operator. The compiler will warn suggest parenthesis. So recently, I was attending one of the webinar of conducted by Dr. S.S. Navalgund sir. He told one of the scenarios that in US, a banking system wherein the code was written and there was an error, it seems, logical error. They had used this operator, single equal to operator, in place of double equal to operator, and because of which the bank lost huge dollars in billions, it seems, just for some silly mistake of this. That's why I took it on the slide to explicitly tell you, don't confuse between these two things. So here I'm explaining you what happens if you use these two things. Just have a look. Int x equal to 5, 5 is initialized to x. If x is double equal to 6, then execute certain statements, and what will be the value of x? X value is still 5 because x is initialized as 5. Here what we are doing, we are just checking the relation. This is a relational operator. We are checking the relation of it, whether x is equal to 6 or not. If x is equal to 6, execute this, or else don't execute. It is not doing any assignment. Whereas observe here, I have just changed the double equal to single equal to, means I've changed the relational operator to assignment operator. What does here happens? Int x equal to 5, and we think that it is comparing. We think that it is conditional check, but it is not checking the conditional. It is an assignment operator. 6 is assigned to x, and your value of x becomes 6 now. That's why your program does not execute according to your wish, because of this tiny mistake. Don't commit silly mistakes which even result in the loss to the company in terms of billions. That is what we have witnessed. Now let us go through the basic data types. I will just move on to it quickly. So char, short int, long int, all these are data types. Character is stored as 1 byte. 1 byte is equal to 8 bits. So you can see the range 0 to 255. It is signed minus 128 to 127. Short int is of 2 bytes. Int, same as either short or long int. So this is system dependent. I stress upon it. Int consumes how many data bytes? It is system dependent. If your system is of 32 bits, it will reserve 4 bytes. If it is of 8 bytes, it will reserve, if it is of 64-bit machine, int consumes 8 bytes. So it is system dependent. So there is no straight answer for this. So this is how the range of this int is -21474836482214748487. I spelled it with some intention because there is a question coming up in the coming slides. Please remember this. This is a range, or you can remember this also. This is a range. Okay. So now the float and double are the other data types, which again typically will be stored in 4 bytes. Double will be the double amount of the bytes that's stored for the float. And floating point precision is maintained here. So 24 bits will be assigned to mantissa and 8 bits for signed exponent. So here I have a code. So I'll be taking you to the Dev C++ compiler for execution of this code. So which throws some light on like the size of the data types. There is some operator called size of. Size of, don't consider it to be a function, it's an operator. Okay, so we are using size of operator to check the size of all the data types that we discussed just now. Just have a look. A linker, hash include stdio.h, int main. I used int, that's why I'm ending with return 0. If you have void, no need to put return 0. Have a look here. Printf, storage size for int is %d. I'm displaying what? I'm displaying size of int. Here I'm displaying size of unsigned int, size of short, size of float, size of double. All these things I'm displaying now. Size of, how much byte does it consume? When you declare a variable. Now let us go to the GCC Dev C++ GCC compiler. That is what I mean to say. So we recommend you to use this because it's a wonderful tool and user friendly also. I'll copy this code in order to save the time and I'll paste it. This is a Dev C++ compiler. Though the name is Dev C++, it even acts as a C compiler also. Go to file, go to new, click on source file. That's simple. This editor window opens. I just copied on my code here. This is a code which I have copied. Now I execute this. You can save it and then execute. So to execute it, we have execute or compile, I can say. The most preferred word here is compile. So you can compile here, you can run here, or you have an icon which compiles and runs together. Okay, so I'm compiling it. And compile, wait for a minute. If there are any errors, it will be displayed in the compile log or console window. So it's taking time because my computer is running up with a lot of parallel apps, Google Meet, Recorder, and so on, PPTs as well as compiler. Just have a look here. Storage size of int is 4 bytes. Storage size for unsigned int is also 4 bytes. Storage size for short is 2. Storage size for int is again 4. I think I repeated it. For char it is 1, for float it is 4, for double it is 8, and for long double it is 16. Please remember this. And always when question is asked what is the storage size for an int, your answer should be system dependent because this is dependent on my system. It might vary in the older computers and it might even vary with the newer computers. Okay, so this is the output with Dev C++. I'll again switch back to the PPT. Before that, I'll just check if you have any queries. If you have any put any queries, I can see pre-increment. Yes, I thank Sidlingesh Navalgund sir for responding to the queries of students in the chat box. You are reducing my work, sir. Thank you. I'll just go back to the PPTs. Now, now there is an important aspects, that is type conversions. So type conversions, the some details before I proceed. The operands in the binary operator must have the same type and its result should be also in the same type. This is normal thinking of us. For example, here what we are doing is, here it's a Celsius to Fahrenheit to Celsius converter. 9 is an integer, 5 is an integer, right? When you operate, when you divide it, we call it as integer division. When you perform integer division, what do you expect the type of the output? Of course, it should be an integer, right? So the operands of the division are both int and hence the result also would be int. Now, let me make small change. For correct results, one may read, because this results in 9 by 5. What does it results? It results in 9 by 5 results in, you can post your answers in the chat box. Yes, I don't wait much because I don't have much time. The answer might be 4.5 of few people, or it might be 4. So the correct answer is 4 because it is integer division. It does not support floating point. 4.5 is not supported by integer division. So you can see here, I just to correct the results, I made small modifications. What I did is I extended 9 with 9.0, 5.0. The meaning is this is a float type. When you divide it, definitely you will get the correct answer. That is, the answer will be 4.5 and further operations will be carried out. In case of the two operands of binary operator are different but compatible, then they are converted to the same type by the compiler. For example, if you have just written 9.0 divided by 5, this will be converted to the float type itself. Compatible if it is compatible. Okay, you don't put a char there. Okay, so the mechanism, this mechanism of auto conversion of the type is called as automatic typecasting, or else implicit typecasting. That's the meaning. I have a slide to explain you here. Implicit typecasting works like this. So normally you can typecast implicitly from top to bottom, and there is some explicit typecasting conversion is also possible, and let us view it how to do with an example. So learning with an example is always the best way of learning, and I would suggest you to do the same thing with all rest of the subjects. Type conversions, character and short operands are converted to int. That's the meaning. The hierarchy goes like this. Lower data types are converted to higher data types, and results is of higher data types. Remember this. The conversion between unsigned and signed types does not yield intuitive results. That's why it is not recommended to do so. And one of the example, let me take. I want you people to just come up with the answer. Float F, double D, long L. All these are declarations. Int I as well as short S. All these are declaration. Now I am performing a arithmetic operation here. Addition and division operation. D plus F. It is double plus float. This results in what kind of the results? I want you people to type, give the answer in the comment box. Just have a check in the comment box. Just switching between the apps. Yes, double. I'm getting answer from Ms. Sureka, Sunita. Good, you're right. Let me show the answer for the rest of the things. Yes, F will be converted to double. Your answer is perfectly right. And in the next case, S will be converted to int. And what about the last one? The people who are like showing some reluctance to post an answer. I would like to see a chat coming up. Please involve in the discussion. So int I and long L. So the I is converted to long and long result. It will result in long result. So this is what is the answer. Now explicit typecasting. So what is the meaning of explicit typecasting? So it is possible to force a conversion for an operand barring the hierarchy. So just an example here. Whenever you want to typecast, for example, 9 by 5 is an integer. So this integer results in a wrong answer, but I don't want to do so. That's why I don't even want to write 9.0. So what's the other way? The other way is explicit typecasting. How can it be done? So it can be done by covering up the data type that you want it to convert, want it to cast in the double parenthesis, opening and closing parenthesis, not double parenthesis, opening and closing parenthesis. So this would yield into the explicit type conversion. So I have a small code here. I'll just go to the Dev C++ and take this code and I'll explain you in a quick phase. So I'll just take it here. I have taken a code, just have a check here. So what does it do? It will compute the mean. Mean is an average. Int sum is equal to 17, count is equal to 5. I have declared the mean as double. So it has huge capacity to store the value, mean. Sum divided by count, 17 by 5, 17 by 5, both are integers. You know, it will not yield into the correct result. So I'll show you. I am compiling. So when I copy paste it, it might show some errors. Let us not worry. You just see here, value of the mean is 3. Whereas 17 divided by 5 value is not 3. It is something else. So to correct it, what I have to do? I have to do an explicit typecasting. How to do it? In a closed parenthesis, I should write the typecasting I want to have. Float. Float is sufficient for me. Even double works. 3.4. This is the correct answer. So hope you got some clear idea regarding typecasting now. Okay, so with this, we'll proceed to the further program. I have one more type conversion program. I just want you people to spend some time. Quickly come up in the chat box. What would be the answer here? So here I am having a value of A as 100. I think it is billion. 1 billion. 1 billion. Correct me if I'm wrong. This is 1 billion. This is 3. Int is answer, ANS. So ANS is assigned with A star B divided by B. So what will happen here? It will follow the BODMAS rule. You'll be knowing about it. Okay. So let me just go through it. So when you have a equal hierarchy, precedence operators are available, then you should go from the left to right. So here what happens according to you? I want you people to answer it. A star B. 1 billion into 3 divided by 3. What is the answer? What is the answer? A. I'm getting the answer as A. A means you mean to say that the answer would be billion? Let me check. Let me check. So here is a code. I'm just copying it. I will show it in Dev C++ compiler. You might have evaluated in the same manner. Answer is equal to 1 billion into 3 divided by 3. It should result in 1 billion itself, right? So let me see what would it result. Same code. I'm just running it. So what's the answer here? Minus 431. This is not the answer. This is a garbage value. Some random value. Means it's an incorrect result. Why it is resulting in incorrect answer? I just want you people to remind one thing, that integers range. I quoted something. I spelled something when I was telling you about range of the integer. It is 2 billion something. That's a range. So when you have 1 billion into 3, it comes out to be 3 billion. It is crossing the range of the integer, right? And when it goes out of the integer, so it is expected to be a wrong answer. So to make it correct, what I'm supposed to do? Typecasting. I'll increase the number of bytes allocated to it. Let me increase it to the double. By changing the data type to the double, what benefit I might get? It will correct the result in the manner which I have shown in the previous code. That is one. Second is it will give more space for evaluating your answer. So just check what happens now. Now you have the correct answer as quoted by you in the comment section. Correct? Understood? Any doubts in this? I hope there are no doubts. Let me proceed. Let me proceed with the next one. So explicit typecasting with double, you can get it. You can achieve it. So now comes the memory. So memory is like a big table of numbered slot. It's like in your room, you have a rack, you are arranging the books. In the same fashion, the computer allocates the memory to the variables that we have requested. So let us have a check on it. The number of slots is its address. How many slots you have in your rack, that defines the address. If you have 10 racks, we address it as from beginning to end, like first slot, second slot, third slot, like that. In the same manner, the slot will be named. That is what we call it as address. And 1 byte value can be stored in one slot. Remember this, 1 byte storage will be there in one slot. Like you can say 10 books storage is possible in one rack of your room, in that manner. Some logical data values span more than one slot. Remember, some logical data values span more than one slot. Like the character string hello needs more number of bytes. So to do it, we have some options in the C program. You just have a look here. Think that it is like a rack. I'm naming your racks 0, 1 till 12, and these are the spaces that has been provided. Each space location is being provided with 1 byte storage. 1 byte storage. So H needs 1 byte storage, E needs 1 byte storage. In the bracket, what I have written is its ASCII equivalent has been written. Whatever character you write, it will be converted into its equivalent ASCII and then it will be stored. A type names a logical meaning to a span of the memory. Char, int, float, that tells about how many storage to be allocated. For example, character byte will be allocated with 1 slot, and char into the big bracket, square brackets 10. The meaning is I want 10 times the character location. That's the meaning. It's called as array of characters. I need 10 such locations. It will book 10 locations. That's the meaning. Int reserves 4 bytes, whereas float reserves 4 bytes, and you just ignore it. Let me call it as a double. Double reserves 8 bytes. The meaning of it is int in 64-bit machine reserved 8 bytes. Okay, so this is how the memory is addressed. So now memory addressed, I'll just take some more information here. Memory is divided up to into 1 byte pieces individually addressed. Minimum data you can request from the memory is 1 byte. That is also already told to you. And each byte has an address for a 32-bit processor. Why I took 32-bit processor? Because it's the most common processor we have, barring the recent 2 years advancement in the computer industry. 32-bit processor has how many addressable memories? It will be having 2 raised to 32-bit bytes address. This was one of the questions in the placement process. How many addressable memories are available in 32-bit machine? The answer is 2 raised to 32. If it is in general, how many addressable memory is available in a computer or in general? Your answer should be system dependent. Okay, so to uniquely identify each of the accessible byte, you need 32 bits. So I have 32 bits to address, to locate the each location. For example, in your home, you have 10 locations, 10 racks, 10 racks. How many number you need in order to address each of the racks? You need 10. So for writing 10, what's the maximum number of bit is needed? With 3 bits, you can write 8, equivalent decimal. With 4 bits, I can go up to 16, 15. So I need 4 bits. So like that, for 32-bit machine, you have 32 bits for memory. Now comes a variable. A variable names a place in a memory where you should store a value in a certain type. You first define a variable by giving it a name and specifying the type, and optionally can initial value. See, these slides I have intentionally prepared. Rather than calling it as PPT, I call it as handouts, because as Naul Gun sir instructed us to provide the study materials, all the study materials that is prepared by us to you people. What I felt is, if in our absence, if you read it, it should be understandable. That's why rather than calling it a slide, I call it as a handout for you. Okay, you can easily understand these things once you undergo this training. So here, declare versus define. Declare means int x is a declaration. Define means I'll just take this example. Char x, it's a character type. X is declared. Char y is assigned with some initial value. This is called defined. Y has been defined. You just have a check here. Type is single character. Y is name, X is name of a variable. E closed and closed in single quotes is initial value, and this initial value of X is undefined. That's the meaning. You can see here X has been assigned with 1 byte and value is not been defined. Y has been also assigned with 1 byte because it's a character type, but it's initially it's defined as E. Equivalent ASCII is 101. External static constant. Let me don't worry much about it. The compiler puts them somewhere in memory. So multi-byte variable. What if I have a multi-byte variable? Most architectures store data on word boundaries. Word is double the byte. Okay, double the byte we call it as word, or even multiples of size of primitive data types int. For example, in my machine, int consumes 4 bytes. Okay, so memory allocation will happens with the numbers that are divisible by 4. That are divisible by 4. For example, you just have a check. Char x is assigned with how many bytes? 1 byte. Char y is assigned with 1 byte. Int is assigned with 4 bytes. But in your memory allocation, this 2 bytes is left open. It is left unoccupied. This means padding, memory padding. Why? Because I said most architectures, computer architectures, let it be Intel or AMD, store data on word boundaries or even multiples of size of primitive integer data types, that is integer of 4 bytes. For example, character, it will reserve 1 byte, and when you suddenly declare something else, some other data type like int or float, it will leave 2 spaces because in total it should up till 4 locations, it will accept only char but not anything else. So that's why these 2 are left open. That is called padding. And thereafter z integer byte will be allocated, 4 bytes will be allocated, and this is a value. Okay, so OX means the constant is written in hex. That's the meaning. As int consumes 4 bytes, that's why I have declared it here. Int consumes 4 bytes. So one more important fundamental things. This is something called big endian format and little endian format in memories. For example, here big endian is an order in which the big end, most significant value in the sequence, is stored first at the lowest storage address. For example, look at this. This is a memory address. This is a memory address, and this is a content. This is a lowest storage address. Okay, and lowest storage address is this, and highest storage address is 103. Lowest storage address is coming up with most significant bit because this is a data, and this is a data. Most significant bit is inside lowest storage address. So this kind of formatting is called as big endian. This is big endian method. Little endian is exactly opposite. Least significant byte stored in lowest address. This is a lowest address. And what is stored here? Least significant byte. 67 is least significant byte. Okay. So this is how the processors architecture differ. For example, your Intel and AMD processors differ in their architecture. Okay, so Intel follows the big endian and AMD follows little endian, and so on. Now comes the program. We were just getting into more of the program. So I'm just taking now the for loop statement. So I am taking just the important things to brush up your already learned things. Okay, so here with for loop, how can I generate a infinite loops? It's by these 2 ways. Just have a check here. For in the parenthesis, I don't have initialization or declaration. I don't have condition. I have not mentioned any post or pre-increment. Just a semicolon and ending with semicolon. So this will generate a infinite loop, or without semicolon also it will generate a infinite loop. Let me take one program which calculates the sum of first n natural numbers. What I've done here, include. I have initialized number, num, count, sum equal to 0. I enter, I'm taking an input from the user. So printf, enter a positive integer means it will ask you to feed the number. Scanf, whatever you have fed from your keyboard, it will be scanned and will be stored, assigned to num. For loop terminates when n is less than count. That's the meaning. That's how I set this for loop. You just have a check. So this is count equal to 1 initialization. This is the condition, count until it is less than or equal to num. Think that you have entered 5. Until it is less than 5, it'll just execute and increment it. Sum plus equal to count means sum is equal to sum plus count. This is what is happening here. Let me just take this code on to your compiler. I'll just quickly show it. I'll take into the dev C++. I'll execute it. So once I execute, it will ask enter a positive integer. Let me take 5. Sum is equal to 15. Why I have got sum is equal to 15? Because when num is 5, so count is starting from 1. 1 is less than or equal to num. Sum is initialized as 0. Sum is equal to 0 plus count. 0 plus 1. 1 will be assigned to sum. In the next execution of for, so count would have become 2. Sum is equal to 1. 1 is a previous value. 1 plus 2 is equal to 3. Like that, 3 plus 3, 6. 6 plus 4, 10. Like that it continues. So this is how it executes. So now we'll go to the next slide. I'll just show you one for loop as a continuity. This for loop, I remove the initialization. I remove the condition. I remove, even the increment. What happens now? This for loop will never terminate. Printf, this answer will never be printed. You just have a check. I'll execute. I'll enter somewhat 5. So the answer will not be printed because for loop will never terminate. So it is entering infinite loop. Okay. So this is how the infinite loop can be generated. Why I shown infinite loop? Because sometimes the program will not result in answer even using single step, because by mistake you might have entered of infinite loop. That's why. With a while loop, again, we have infinite loop whenever you write while of 1. When you write while of 1, it will generate an infinite loop. Means while inside the parenthesis you need to condition. You need to write a condition. If the condition is always 1, if the condition is always true, the meaning is always you execute. When you're executing always, there is no termination condition given at all. That's why it will now never terminate. It is not only true with while is equal to while in the parenthesis 1. It is also true with while parenthesis with any non-zero value. Any non-zero value. Now my question is, what if let me show you one of the code now. I'll display both of the code. You just check here. Int main, I am initializing variable with equal to 5. Integer variable equal to 5. Variable less than or equal to 10. It's a condition. Print this particular variable and decrement it. So what would it result? You just have a check. 10 up till variable reaches 10, this will execute. But does the var reaches 10? It will never reach 10 because its value is 5, and it will print a variable here and it will decrement. So when it decrements, 5 becomes 4, 4 becomes 3, 3 becomes 2, 2 becomes 1, 1 becomes 0, 0 becomes minus 1. It will never come to 10. So it will execute infinitely. So don't commit such mistakes. Okay. And here, what would be the answer of this? While of -1. Please come up in the chat box. Let me take this code. I'll take in dev C++. I'll look for the answer by you in the chat box, and then I'll execute it. Yes, students. Sir, what is the difference between infinite loop and super loop? Yeah, I'll just get back to this once I done with the once I continue with this. Yes, I want an answer from you. What will be the answer for while of -1 print hello? It prints 128 is one answer. Range is it prints infinite hello world as there is no condition. Let me check. Let me check with the Dev C++ compiler. Yes, your answer is absolutely correct. It is printing hello indefinitely or infinitely. That's a correct answer. Okay. Now, now we have one more code. I don't take it in the Dev C++ compiler as we are running out of time. I'll It's already 11:40, so my session was till 11:30, and because of extended the inauguration session, I need another 20 minutes to conclude my session. I would request Kotre sir and the organizers to just bear with me for another 20 minutes, and even for students participants. Okay, so
Yes,
uh,
sir. Yes, sir. Go ahead. Go
yeah,
ahead.
thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Yeah. So while loop. So here you just analyze int count initialized with 1 while count is less than or equal to 4. Printing, I'm printing this count. So what happens? Count is 1 till it reaches 4. That's a condition. It should print and count you're incrementing. 1 becomes 2, 2 becomes 3, 3 becomes 4. All the time it prints. And after 4, it increments, it becomes 5. When count is, condition is checked. 5 less than or equal to 4. It fails. The false condition will take you out of the loop and it'll stop. And your output displayed is 1, 2, 3, and 4. This is a simple code. Just a recap, nothing else. My intention is to just brush up all the things that you have studied already. And this is a factorial of a number. I want you people to take it as a a task by the end of today's session 1 and session 2, and I want you people to execute the factorial generation factorial of a number program and execute it in your compiler, either in your cell phone or into your computer. So what here I have done is all these things you already know. Enter an integer. I want to enter an integer for what factorial you want. I am scanning it in a number. Initializing variable with factorial variable with 1. I am defining it as long, or else you can define it as double, because factorial number I am expecting it to be a big number. I want it to be stored in a more number. I want to allocate more number of bytes. Hence, I am declaring it as long rather than int. Okay. So while number is greater than 0, so for factorial computation, your number should be always greater than 0. Okay. That's a rule. You know it already. Basic mathematics. So factorial is equal to factorial into number 1. So factorial value is 1. 1 into number. For example, your number entered is 5. 1 into 5 will result in 5. That 5 will be stored in factorial. And again it will execute because it decrements. So it will decrement again. It will execute. So now the value is 2. Number is 4 because it is decrementing from 5. The value is 4. So 4 into 5 becomes 20. Then again it decrements to 3. 20 into 3 becomes 60. Like that it continues, and it will evaluate the factorial of 5. I want you people to test it in the compiler. If any queries, you can just ask it in the further sessions, as well as we have mentioned you the mail IDs. You are free to approach us even in the WhatsApp group. The WhatsApp group creation intention is the intention of creating the WhatsApp group is you can ask the questions. I couldn't find any students putting a chat or putting a message there. I expect them to do it. We don't mind answering you. We don't treat it as a disturbance. So do while loop, it's just an extended version of do while loop. There is one and only one difference between while loop and do while loop. That is, that is, do while loop executes at least one time even the condition is false. I repeat, think that there is a while loop, think that there is a do while loop, both the conditions are false now. Means both the loop statement should not be entered. That's what I wanted. But do while is designed such that it will execute at least one time. Unlike while loop. If while loop is its condition failed, then it will come out of the loop. It will not even execute single time. Whereas for do while loop, it will execute at least one time. Remember that. And rest all of the infinite loops remain same. Do while, in while you will be mentioning condition. So when your condition has a non-zero number, you remember it. Any non-zero number, let it be -10, -100, minus lakh, let it be any non-zero value, it will be an infinite loop. So it will be always false whenever you have while zero. While zero is always false, while non-zero is always true. But if you mention condition, after that condition is satisfied, after that condition fails, then only it will come out of the loop. Just have a check here. Count is defined as 5. While zero, intentionally I have taken this. While zero means what? Condition is always false. But we think that this loop statement should never execute, but it does not happen so. Like in while, it will execute because the execution pointer will be here. So it will execute, it will enter this, it will print count value is 5, and it will increment it to 6, and then it will check the condition, it is 0, it will come out of the loop. But first time 5 will be printed. Please remember this. This is one deviation from while loop to do while loop. Then again, I'm skipping certain things. I have said you I'm not taking if statement, conditional statements, because it is very easy and we have been using it. That's why I have not taken if else, and we are using it in the codes itself. Here I'm using break and continue statement. There is one more statement into it, that is go to statement. Go to is not used normally, not recommended for use because of its switching over from any place to any place. It is not recommended. Okay. So here I'm using break and continue statements. I'll take this code in the Dev C++ for a better explanation. I'll take this in the Dev C++. It's a division code. I'm just writing a division code. It's a simple code. And for division to happen, there is one rule. What is that rule? Your denominator should never be what? Your denominator should never be 0. That's the rule that we are following. Enter the dividend, scan it. Enter the divisor, scan it. If divisor is equal to 0, if denominator is equal to 0, then what should happen? It's an illegal divisor. You cannot have 0 in the denominator because it will result in NaN, not a number. So make sure you're not having a denominator to be 0. And after printf, after this, I am breaking. What does it do? And what if I replace this with continue? That is what we want to test it now. Okay. Now, the rest of the code is simple. Printf, quotient is dividend divided with divisor. Remainder is dividend modulo with divisor. Simple thing. Do another. If you click Y character will be scanned, and I'm using a do while loop. Here is a do. Here's a while. I'm checking the condition. At least one time it will execute even if it is false. But now after it executes first time, it will check for the condition. If character is not equal to n, if you have not said n, then only it will execute again. Let me check it. I'm using break statement here. Please concentrate to this particular point, break statement. My intention of showing this code is to explore the working of break. Enter dividend 5, enter divisor 2, answer is quotient is 2, remainder is 1. I want to take one more y. Now I enter dividend y. Now divisor I'll enter it to be 0. If it is 0, it should break. If breaked, what happens? After it displays illegal divisor, it will come out of the loop. It will directly come out of the loop. But what happens with the continue? Let me replace with continue. I'll change it to continue. So when I change it to continue, I'll run it. Now let me check with the same values. Let us see what happens. Divisor, I'll give it as 5. Dividend, I'll give it as 5. Divisor, I'll give it as 0. So illegal divisor, but it is asking again enter dividend, which was not happening with the break statement. Did you observe the difference? The difference is the continue statement take the execution pointer to the start of the loop statement, whereas break will take the execution point to the end of the loop statement. That's the difference. Hope you got it. Okay, break statement takes you to the end of the loop statement. Continue statement will take you to the start of the loop statement. So that's the difference. Okay, hope you understood the difference between break and continue. Don't use go to statement, take my word. Okay, so there is one case statement, kind of switch and case statement used here. So here I'm using a for loop. Okay, I is equal to 0, I less than 20, I plus plus. Okay, it's optional label. Switch I. So I am testing. If I is 0, it will execute this statement. If I is 1, it will execute this statement. If I is 5, this will execute this statement. Anything else, any other value of I, then it will execute default statement. That's the meaning. Now I want you people to compute the output. It is printing I after coming out of the for loop. What does it prints? What does it prints? I'll take this. Of course, what output got displayed here. Let it be. Not a concern. I just want to show one more strength of Dev C++. One more strength of Dev C++. Please observe it carefully because I'm showing you how to execute single step operation. How to execute single step operation. Please concentrate. First, I'll execute it once. 1621 is the right answer. Let us analyze. First, 0 will be executed. 0 means I value will be 0. So 0 plus 5 is I is 5 now. Then this will be executed because there is no break statement. So that's why the next statement will be executed. 5 plus 2 is 7. 7 plus 5 is 12. And then 12. 12 is not mentioned here. 12 means 12 plus 4 is 16. 16 is the first answer. Let us check. So what do I do is I click on debug operation. Debug. First you should click on debug. Hope you're observing it. Debug. I'll click here. Debug. So it will highlight all these values. So I'll compile once. Debug. Then I'll add a watch. What I want to watch? I want to watch the value of I. I want to watch the value of I and locate from where you want to debug. I want to start my debug process here. Sorry. Here. I have mentioned it. I just single click. I'm checking from this point. Now I debug it. So you just go on observing this I is equal to 0. Next line, it is entering switch process. K is equal to 0. After execution of this statement, I will be updated with 5 value 5. Just observe it. I is updated with 5. After 5, it is taking value as 7. Hope the font is very small. I'll read it. It is 7. Then 12. Then just observe. I'm opening the console window. Nothing is printed here. Once printf statement executes, it will display the value. So after this, it will become 16, 16. Now, nothing is there here. Now, next line. After this, you can see here, 16 is printed. You can see here, 16 is printed in the output screen. Now, again, I repeat. So once I value is 16, it will be incremented one more time. That becomes 17. 17 is not there here. It will directly execute the default statement. So default statement says that it should be incremented by 4 times. 17 plus 4 will result in 21. So let us check. 17 after the post increment. Then directly it will go to default statement. After it executes, I value is 21 and the same will be printed. See, it is not yet printed. I'll execute the next line. So now you can say that it is printing 21. This is how the single statement can be made use of. After that, stop execution. Remove this single step execution and it is again ready for use in the normal way. Okay, so we'll go to the next thing. We'll increase our pace now. Arrays. So an array is a collection of variables of same types that are referred to through a common name. For example, you have declared some integer type. So if I want same name members, same integer type members, 10 in numbers, then I use an array. For example, you can see here, a is an integer, a in the square bracket. If I mention 6, then a of we have 6 such arrays. A is an array of 6 members. So that's how you should take. Double is an array of 15 members. So that's how you need to take it. So array initialization is done in this way. there are two ways of initialization. If you don't initialize, it contains some garbage value. If you initialize, it will take the values that you have initialized. For example, int month underscore days are month underscore days is a array of integers. Here I have not defined its length. Okay, so it is not defined. So with the initialization, you can initialize any number here. 31 is a first member of the array, 28 is a second member of an integer array. Like that it continues. This is called static initialization. You are initializing it before you write a heart of the program, before you write what you should do with these things, or what is the logic you are writing for the program. Whereas runtime initialization of the array means int I, int a, array of 6. Here I'm not initializing it. I'm utilizing a for loop, and then I decide what should a of 0 should contain, what should a of 2 should contain, what should a of 6 should contain. All these things I'll be deciding now. Not a of 6, a of 5. A of 5. It is one index less. Okay, so 0 to 5. So a of 0 is 6 minus 0. A of 0 will be assigned with 6. It will increment once again. A of 1 will be assigned with 6 minus 1, 5. So like that you can initialize. This is runtime initialization. Now, accessing an element. How to access an element of an array? So we have 6 elements here: a of 0, a of 1, a of 2, a of 3, a of 4, a of 5, and some address has been given, separated by 4 bytes. And these are the values that from the previous code. A of 0 is assigned with 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 6 elements of 4 bytes. Total size is 6 into 4 bytes equal to 24 bytes is allocated for a of 6. Now read an element. Integer temp is initialized with a of 2. It is reading, means temp is been assigned with a value. Temp is read as a of 2. Temp will receive the value 4. Whereas writing to an element is a of 3 is written with new value 5. Its old value is 3. Now it is written with new value of 5. You just hear 4 is updated to temp, 5 is updated to 3. So this is how you can access the arrays. Now the next topic is strings. Strings in C. There is no keyword called string. This is a mere or a silly confusion normally many people have. Please take that confusion out of your mind. There is nothing called keyword string. Okay? A string is an array of characters. String is also an array. Okay? But explicitly they have given some very much importance to the string, because string is an array of characters. Whereas array can be array of integers, array of float, even I can say that string is a subset of an array. Okay, it's a kind of an array. Okay, but it is array of characters only. Now, how to define a string? Character string. String is not a keyword. It's a variable. Okay, it's an identifier. I have given the name. Okay, you can give any name. Character string. I'm initializing it as hello world with a double quotes. This is what you need to follow. And there is one more way to declare it. This, I'm stressing upon it. The more focus will be given on this kind of statement in the coming sessions. String is a pointer to a character, or it's a character pointer. It points to the first address location of the string. So your pointer will be pointing to the H. So more of this will be discussed in the next session. I don't want to confuse you right now. Okay, a C string of the character with addresses looks like this. See, how many addresses are needed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So 11 addresses. Hello, space is also a character. Remember, word, and it's a null character. Always strings end with a null character. You don't write anything, it's treated as null character. Okay, strings always end with null character. Okay, significance of null character, let us just look into it. Compiler has to know where the strings is ending. That's why it understands that string is ended only when it observes the null character. Even space is not considered as null character. Space is a character. It has been assigned with some ASCII character. I'll show you ASCII equivalent of all the characters in the very next slide. Okay, so backslash 0 denotes the end of the string. Some more characters, it's not null character, but some more characters are like, for new line we call it as backslash n, for horizontal tab backslash t, vertical tab, and single inverted commas, inverted commas a, ASCII equivalent 41, ASCII equivalent is 61, like that goes on. Its ASCII equivalent is 00. Okay, so now I have a small exercise, very interesting exercise. I want to print ASCII value using C program. Means what's the character A means, what's its equivalent character, ASCII character. A very simple program, very simple program. You just have a integer I, for loop 255, because I have 255 ASCII characters starting from 0. Go on incrementing it. What I'm doing is, for this I, see, for the same I, 2 times I am having. For one time I'm displaying it as a percentage %C for character, equivalent character. Other time I'm displaying it as integer. Now let us check all the characters that are present and its ASCII equivalent in your C compiler. I'm executing it. It'll give a very interesting things. No need to refer the backside of the famous books and all, where they'll give the ASCII equivalent of all those things. You just here. I'll read few. ASCII value of character, this is space is 0. ASCII value of character, smiley is 1. Lot of things are there. A capital A is 65, capital Z is 90, open square bracket is 91, and you can just have a look. All these things. Okay, so this is how you can check the ASCII equivalent of the characters. One of the important exercises, I recommend you to do this also after the sessions, today's sessions. Okay, now we'll quickly go on to the next one. Next one being structures. Structures with pointers will be covered later. So just have a look here. Structures have the format like this. Struct is a keyword followed by tag, any name you wish, member list, and variable list. Structures are somewhat called as user defined data types. For example, if I want to have the details of the classroom. So classroom details means USN, your student's name, and student marks. For storing USN, I need a character type, string. To save the name, I need a character. To store the marks, I need an integer type. This is like combination of it forms a heterogeneous data type. For that, I use a structure. Okay, so here I don't deal much. These are the variations. You can omit tag. Tag means you might ignore giving the name to the struct. That is also accepted. And you can omit variables. Variable means you have not defined a variable of struct, like variable of integer. You will be having variable of structure. Even that is can be omitted. I'll take an example. That's why I'm going fast here. You can even omit members because it is copying. You can see struct. Yes, struct s is defined here. There was no variable. Now z acts as a variable of this struct. Okay, and type def struct is this, create a sample type name yes, and it's a more convenient than struct s. No need to write struct s. If you just write yes and followed by whatever variable you declare, it will treat it as a data type yes. Okay, no need to write struct and all. Omit both tag and variable. These are the variations. Now I just take an example so that things will be clear. Rather than students details, I'm taking an employee details here. Employee details means it will be having ID. For ID, treating it to be only numbers. Integer data type. Character for name. Let us assume that name is of only 5 characters. Float is a salary. Like for writing 3.5 lakhs for floating point, we have written it. How to write a structure of it? Struct employee is a tag, open flower brace, close flower brace, semicolon. Here I'm writing the heterogeneous things: data type int, data type character, data type float. Then I'm not writing variable here. That's an optional thing. You can write the variable emp of 2 here itself, or else you can go to the next line, write struct employee. Struct employee is this one, and then define a variable emp of 2. It's a variable array of structure, means there are two kinds of structure, two structures here. One is emp0, one more is emp1. emp0 consists of what? emp0 is employee details of number 1. Think that there are two employees named Shrikant and Kotresh. Okay, so Shrikant details will be entered in employee of 0, and Kotresh sir details will be entered in employee of 1. So this has ID, this has a name. Of course, Shrikant is not sufficient. Let us call it a Shri. Okay, and salary. I don't want to disclose my salary. Okay, let it be confidential. And then Same thing with Kotres, second person. Okay. So here, let us just analyze the size of the employee, size of this EMP. Okay, size of this struct is 4 bytes for integer, 5 bytes for character, and 4 bytes for float. 13 bytes it consumes whenever you declare it, declare a variable it. And here it is a variable of 2. 2 employees are there. That's why it will define or it will allocate 13 into 226 bytes. And one thing, please remember, memory padding is ignored for simplicity. I'll show it here. Let me show it in the program itself. I'll take the program. I'll explain it. Structure program I'm taking to explain the memory allocated with the structures. So here what I'm doing is I'm declaring a size integer type struct student details. I'm taking student details. Size equal to size of yes. See, I have declared a structure where stud is nothing but it has details of students, integer roll number, it is integer, character name of the student, 10 characters, integer marks. So 3 details I want to space. How many bytes will be consumed? At the prima facie, it looks like integer will be having 4 bytes, character is 1 byte into 10, 10 into 1 is 10, 10 plus 4 is 14, 14 plus again 4, 18 bytes should be allocated. But here, how many bytes will be allocated? Let us check. Here I'm taking all the cases. Size of a structure. According to us, it should be 18 byte. Let us see. And then size of yes dot roll. Yes dot roll is to access the roll number of a particular student. We will be writing like this. Size of s dot roll. What is the byte allocation for integer? What is the byte allocation for s dot name? That is character string name. What is the byte allocated for this one? Then address. This address more detail will be explained in the very next session by Kotres sir. So I'll execute it. You can see here size of a structure is 20, but we analyzed it to be 18. Where we went wrong? We went wrong here. You just check. I said that processor, the architecture, most of the architectures in the processor allocate the memory with a number divisible by 4. One time 4 bytes will be allocated. Next time again 4 bytes will be allocated. Next time again 4 bytes will be allocated, like that. For roll 4 bytes it needs 4 bytes allocated. For this 10 bytes it needs multiple of 4. More than this is 12. 12 bytes will be allocated. 4 plus 12 is 16, and then again 4, it becomes 12, it becomes 20. That in between 2 bytes extra is called padding. This concept I have already explained you. Address of roll is 23, some random number. It's a snapshot of the processor at that time. 2358832 is a 32-bit address. It is pointing to some address location. See the spacing. After 2 it is going to 6, 4 byte space is there. After 6 it is going to 48, 12 bytes of difference is there. After 48, if you declare one more thing, there will be again 52, 4 bytes of spacing. So this is a address. So hope it got clear. I made it clear. This point is very important actually. Very important. Hope I'm not going fast also. See, this is a padding. Character type, but divisible by 4 allocation should happen. That's why 4 bytes will be fetched at a time, but we are utilizing only 2 bytes. So 4 at a time is allocated. When integer is declared, 4 bytes as it is. This is to just explain you. Unions, I don't take much time here. There is small difference between unions and structures. Like structures, every member occupies the same region of the memory. What is the difference is unions and structures are same. Structures members are allotted with separate memory, for integer separate, for character separate, for a float separate. Whereas unions members are allotted with same memory. For example, in this float is there, int is there, character is there. How many memory is allocated here? 4 bytes and 1. Total 9 bytes for a structure. But for union, maximum of these 3 things. Which is maximum of these 3? Float and int. Of course, I'll take it as float. 4 bytes. Only 4 bytes will be assigned to union. And that's why there is a disadvantage with union. Avoid unions with widely varying number of member sizes. Don't use unions, rather use structures. This is the difference. I have shown it. Character size is 1 byte, size is 4 bytes. Total bytes is 5 bytes. Same code with union. Size is x and y, which is maximum 4 bytes. Only 4 bytes is allocated, which should be shared by these 2 things. That's the negative point of the unions. The last point is enumerations. Enumerations are like data types, predefined data. You can define your data, user-defined data types, I can say. So enumeration can be used with indexing expressions and also operands with arithmetic and relational operators. So enumerations can also be used as an alternative way to use define. Hash define can be replaced by enumeration. See how I'll show you the declaration. Enum example type is a data type which I am intended to prepare or create. Here, 4 members are there in this data type. This data type has only 4 members: red, white, black, and green. And the naming goes like this: 0, 1, 2, 3. Naming always start from 0. And creating unnamed type is also possible. Example type is been removed. That is also possible. One more example. Enum test example. I have 5 numbers: 1, 2, PS3, 4, 5. I am declaring a variable of type test example. I am declaring a variable test1. Test1 is a variable. What is its data type? Its data type is not integer or float. Its data type is test example. What is test example? Test example is a data type prepared by you. And what are its members? Its members are 1, 2, PS3, 4, 5. Like integer members are 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, minus 1, minus 2. Those are the members. But this test examples members are 1, 2, PS3, 4, 5. These are the only 5 members. I'm initializing this variable of this type with a PS3. That's the meaning of enumerations. So in my next session, I'll be covering prime members, strong number, perfect number, Armstrong number, factorial, palindrome, swapping, sorting, pattern generation. These are most favorable questions from basics of C that has been asked in the placements very frequently. You definitely acknowledge this one, because these are the I can say I will not say favorable. These are definite questions you take from my end. These are definite questions for any placements. Okay, I'll just come up with these things in day 3 session 2. Okay, with this I would like to thank you for your patient listening. I would like to apologize to Kotre sir and the organizers for extending my time. If any queries, I'll take it up. And I want to end my lecture with a quote: many will start fast, but few will finish strong. Most of us might not have started properly, right? Let it be our studies or engineering or career, but we always have an option to finish very strong. Okay, so with this quotation, let me stop my session, and it will be continued by Professor Kotresh Murali in the session 2. Before that, I'll just go through the chat box. If you have any queries, if time permits, I'll answer it, or else I'll take it. I'm very surprised to see that most of the queries are already answered by Navalgund sir and Kotre sir. I would like to extend my thanks to even to them. And students, if you have any doubts after this course, after this session, we have mentioned, I have given you the mail IDs. Please post your questions to that mail ID, or else you can post your questions to the WhatsApp group that has been created. So, okay, thank you. And over to Kotre sir and the organizers. If you can have a small break of 5 minutes, or you please take the decision at your end. Thank you, sir. Thank you, students. Thank you, all the organizers. And not to forget, the references that I have made are as follows. These are some of the books and some of the PPTs prepared by eminent persons. And by practice, I have learned and prepared the video as well as the slides. Thank you.